August 1942. In the still waters of Truk Lagoon, the carrier Shōkaku lies motionless, her flight deck bare, hangars silent. Below deck, in a smoke-choked room, 5 Japanese naval officers bend over maps and casualty reports. 3 hours pass without a word. At last, Rear Admiral Yamamoto speaks, his voice rough with fatigue. "Gentlemen, we must accept what these numbers are telling us. The war is lost." No one argues. No one needs to. August 6, 1942, only 2 months after Midway, becomes the day the Imperial Navy finally recognizes the truth. The strike that seemed flawless at Pearl Harbor was the beginning of their defeat. August 1942, the sea is so calm it feels like time has stopped. Shōkaku, once the pride of the Pacific, has become a silent mass of steel at anchor. No engines, no propellers spinning up. Just a few sailors moving quietly, wiping oil stains from steel. Fingerprints of a fleet already in decline. In the cramped conference room, yellow light puddles on the table. Smoke hangs thick with the smell of oil and sweat. 5 senior officers study a Pacific map pocked with red marks, each a ship that will never return. At the head sits Yamaguchi, his face cut by hard lines, eyes fixed on truths the others no longer dare to say aloud. They do not need speeches, they have numbers. Midway's loss reports sit like lead on the table. 8 months earlier, the Empire stood at its zenith. December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor had shocked the world. In under 2 hours, 8 American battleships were sunk or damaged, nearly 200 aircraft destroyed, over 2,400 Americans killed. Tokyo celebrated, flags parades, headlines of a glorious victory for the emperor. But inside that triumph hid the seed of disaster. The carriers Enterprise, Lexington, Saratoga were at sea, untouched. Fuel tanks full of millions of gallons of oil, unhit. Repair yards in the submarine base, intact. Not a tactical oversight alone, but a strategic blunder that would someday demand payment in blood. Admiral Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor, knew the United States too well to be comforted. Harvard-educated, a former naval attaché in Washington, he understood America as a sleeping industrial giant. Whether or not he ever said the famous line, the fear beneath it was real. Japan had perhaps 6 to 8 months before American production erased any advantage. That clock ran out at Midway. In June 1942, Japan tried to spring the trap that would finish America's fleet, but American codebreakers had already read JN-25. In 4 brutal days, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu were lost. Over 250 aircraft and nearly 3,000 elite aircrew gone. Half the spine of the Imperial Navy snapped in a single week. The officers in Truk do not argue with arithmetic. U.S. factories had produced 19,000 military aircraft in 1941 to Japan's 5,000. By 1943, estimates said the U.S. would reach 85,000 a year. Japan, at best, 16,000. American shipyards were laying down a dozen Essex-class carriers. Larger, tougher, more capable than anything Japan could build. Japan had 6 fleet carriers left. 2 were damaged. War in the modern age is not won by spirit, but by output. Yamaguchi looks from the tables to the men. These are not statistics. They are the future already written. Pilot losses hit hardest. Japan entered the war with roughly 3,500 exquisitely trained carrier aircrew, many with 800 flight hours or more. By August, 40% were dead. Coral Sea, Midway, the Solomons. Training pipelines now rushed 100 new carrier qual pilots a month with under 200 hours. A golden generation was being erased. No factory could reproduce it. Across the ocean, America trained thousands each month. Fewer hours per pilot at first, but numbers filled every gap. In an industrial war, quantity becomes a weapon all its own. Then came shipping. From January to August 1942, Japanese merchant losses climbed from dozens to roughly 40 ships per month. U.S. submarines tightening the noose. Oil taken in the Indies had to cross seas now patrolled by American wolves. Japan could build perhaps 200,000 tons of merchant shipping per year while losing 300,000 and rising. Someone suggests a negotiated peace. Return some territories, ask for a ceasefire. Bitter laughter. Pearl Harbor had fused American public resolve. Unconditional surrender had become national policy. Gentlemen, Yamaguchi says at last, we are not losing to tactics. We are losing to reality, half America's population again. A tenth its industry. No oil without imports. Once the giant is awake, nothing at sea can stop him. August 6, 1942. Pearl Harbor is unmasked. Not a triumph, but a death sentence signed in advance. August 7, 1942. 2 days after that admission in Truk, the horizon over the Solomons fills with ships. More than 80 American warships. 11,000 U.S. Marines in landing craft surge toward a strip of jungle and mud, Guadalcanal. An unfinished airfield sits there like a loaded spring. If Japan completes it, the sea lanes to Australia can be cut. If America takes it, the counteroffensive begins. Operation Watchtower, a modest name for a decisive turn. American forces are raw, untested in large amphibious operations. They stagger through jungle, heat, malaria. But behind them stands a moving continent. Factories, shipyards, farms, an industrial fleet at their back. Within days, they seize Lunga and rename it Henderson Field. American aircraft lift off from Guadalcanal. From that moment, daylight belongs to the United States. Japan reels. After Midway, they expected a pause, not a landing. But Guadalcanal proves America is not recovering. It is advancing. From August to December, the island becomes a furnace. By day, American planes scour the jungle. By night, Japanese destroyers sprint the Tokyo Express, hurling troops in crates into black surf. Courage cannot outrun capacity. A few hundred men here, a few tons of rice there. Never enough to break the grip on the airfield. American artillery hammers the darkness. Japanese infantry charges with the old cry of Banzai. But for the first time, that cry is not a promise of victory. It is the voice of desperation. For every American lost, 2 arrive. For every aircraft downed, new ones roll from lines in California and Kansas. For every Japanese pilot killed, there is no replacement of equal skill. By October, Japan has fed over 30,000 troops into the island. Most will not return. They call it the Green Hell. Marines call it the Island of Death. A surviving Japanese officer writes, "We did not fear dying. We feared meaninglessness. Each night we sent men ashore. Each morning they disappeared into smoke." November brings the naval battle of Guadalcanal, 4 nights of slaughter at sea. Over 20 ships are lost between both sides. Yet the difference is structural. America can replace, Japan cannot. The battleship Hiei burns and sinks. Hundreds die in the flames. USS San Francisco limps, and by morning, tugs and repair crews are already at work. For America, every hull is a replaceable link in a production chain. For Japan, every hull is a symbol, and symbols do not regenerate. As Hiei goes under, So does the illusion of Japanese control over the Pacific. Logistics, not valor, decides the hours. From Rabaul to Guadalcanal is 1,000 kilometers. Every ton of cargo drinks 4 tons of fuel to deliver, and half the ships never come home. Meanwhile, the U.S. runs a conveyor belt across the ocean. Escorts, convoys, depots, schedules. War is engineering. A Japanese staffer confides, "We fought like samurai. They fought like engineers. And in this age, engineers defeat samurai." By February 1943, the remnants withdraw. 30,000 went in. Fewer than 10,000 come out. A third died of hunger. The rest under fire. Midway broke the fleet. Guadalcanal broke the faith. Pearl Harbor had been a roar. Guadalcanal is the long, exhausted exhale of a beaten empire. December 1942. Snow flecks the streets of Tokyo. Headlines still shout, "Victory in the Solomons." But in the dim offices of the Navy Ministry, the numbers say otherwise. The empire's true enemy is no longer America alone. It is the emptiness spreading inside Japan. The economy frays. Rice prices double. Coal grows scarce. Streetlights dim early. Trams run half schedules. People queue for kerosene, soap, stationery. In small apartments, whispers replace arguments. Are we losing? No one dares to speak the words aloud. Doubt is treason. Propaganda swells to fill the silence. Posters promise 1 Japanese soldier equals 10 Americans. But behind the paper, turbines stop for lack of fuel, and workers faint on factory floors. Press, schools, radio, fully controlled. Children learn that death for the emperor is glory. Women are urged to sacrifice happiness to serve the greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. Mourning songs carry solemn pride across cities grown thin from ration lines. A nation is hypnotizing itself. Internal reports turn grim. Naval aircrew losses, 1,600 in 4 months. Qualified replacements, 120. Training is cut to mere weeks. An instructor mutters, "We are not teaching them to fly. We are teaching them to fall less painfully." After Guadalcanal, truth becomes a liability. Officers who speak plainly are reassigned or vanish. Fear hardens into policy. Some generals cling to a fantasy, bleed the Americans until they negotiate. They do not grasp that America seeks not armistice, but ending. By early 1943, reality and illusion part company. On maps, arrows still thrust outward. In life, ships do not sail, and aircraft do not climb. Tanker arrivals from the Indies drop by half. Without fuel, planes sit, ships rust, and training dies. A steel worker writes, "We still report for shift, but there is no steel to pour." Fields lie fallow as young men disappear into uniforms. Kitchen gardens sprout on rooftops. Families raise chickens in bathrooms. People boil seaweed, scrape potato peels, feed children stories and hope. A confidential January memo reads, "Morale among junior officers declining. Fuel shortages crippling training and operations." Stamped, top secret. The government knows. It refuses to admit. Yamaguchi keeps sending reports from Truk. None are answered. He walks Shōkaku's deck, day after day, adding new red marks to the map. Ships gone, friends gone. He understands. Japan's worst enemy is not the U.S. Navy. It is its own blindness. At home, mothers and children bear the weight. Arsenals run around the clock. A factory worker says, "Every day we hear a husband, a son, a brother is gone." The radio tells us they have become guardian spirits. I do not know whether to cry or be proud. By 1943, death itself is ritualized. If the plane is failing, ram the enemy. If the position is doomed, charge. Strategy yields to ceremony. We began this war with reason, an officer writes, and continue it with religion. Guadalcanal leaves journals filled with last lines. No rice, no ammunition, only the sound of American planes above. I fear only that no one will remember we were here. Such entries never reach Tokyo. Telegrams say orderly withdrawal, never defeat. The word is banned, but everyone who can count knows. The greater East Asia dream ends on that jungle island. Ahead lie only self-consuming battles, Saipan, Leyte, Okinawa, and at last, Hiroshima. Hell is no longer a front line. It is a condition of the soul, of officers forced to lie, of mothers surrendering sons, of workers running on hunger and slogans. Death is not as terrifying as pretending to believe what is not true. Japan enters the darkest season, not under bombs, but under silence. 3 years pass. Yamaguchi's quiet verdict becomes the nation's fate. After Guadalcanal, the Americans move like machinery. Island hopping turns the Pacific into a chessboard. Each captured square snaps a bone of the empire. June 1944, Saipan falls. Over 30,000 Japanese soldiers die. Thousands of civilians leap from cliffs, taught that Americans will torture and kill them. Propaganda kills as surely as bullets. Prime Minister Tojo resigns. The war grinds on. By year's end, over 1,000 Japanese merchantmen lie on the seabed. Tankers vanish. Oil becomes memory. Without fuel, planes are statues and ships are warehouses. U.S. submarines sink millions of tons in 1944 alone, more than Japan can replace in years. This is not war as thunder. It is war as suffocation. Early 1945, Tokyo burns. B-29 Sao napalm, wooden houses turn to furnaces. In one night, 100,000 die. The firestorm of Tokyo. Not atomic fire, kerosene and wind. Nowhere to run, a survivor recalls. The canals boiled. The sky itself glowed. Morning brings broadcasts of inevitable victory. Truth and lies fuse into the same ash. The Navy runs out of pilots. A new weapon is fashioned from boys. Kamikaze, divine wind. They write farewell letters about mothers, about fear, about the sun they will not see rise. Their sacrifice buys time, not hope. By summer, Iwo Jima and Okinawa are gone. The fleet is a rumor. The Air Force, a handful of weary machines. Generals study maps and understand the end, some choosing the old exit, silence and a sword. Staff officers keep drawing red arrows. The paper does not resist. August 6, 1945. 3 years to the day since Truk. A white light over Hiroshima. In a millionth of a second, the world changes. 3 days later, Nagasaki. Hiroshima completes what Pearl Harbor began. Both are flashes. One opens the door to war. The other closes it on humanity. August 15th. For the first time, the Emperor's voice carries over the radio. We must endure the unendurable, he says. Tokyo falls silent. An empire that believed it was destined to rule Asia meets its own reflection, defeated and human. After the war, in small rooms in Osaka, Hiroshima, Yokohama, veterans, engineers, and workers begin to remember, not to complain, but to understand why they believed. A Navy engineer, we did not fear America. We feared admitting we were wrong. A mother who lost 2 sons on Guadalcanal. I taught them that dying for the emperor was glory. Now I wish I had taught them that living can also serve the nation. No one recorded the meeting aboard Shōkaku on August 6, 1942. No minutes, no photographs, no sworn statements. Only scattered diary lines remain. If we could hear it, perhaps we would hear Yamaguchi. We did not lose for lack of courage. We lost for misjudging people. They misjudged America. Wealth does not mean weakness. They misjudge themselves. Spirit cannot replace reason. They misjudge the world. Fear cannot sustain empire. To the Japanese, Pearl Harbor once symbolized pride. Seen clearly, it is the sentence of doom, because it woke an adversary 10 times stronger. Yamamoto warned he could run wild for a year or two. Beyond that, he had no chance. He was right. 2 years after Pearl Harbor, he died in the sky. 7 years later, Japan was no longer the nation he had known. We forget, looking at maps and figures, that every arrow and ratio stands atop lives. Those officers in the smoky room foresaw the outcome. They could not halt it. Wars do not stop when reason speaks. They stop when pain exceeds pride. Truk Lagoon is quiet now. On the bottom lies Shōkaku, tilted, weed-covered, asleep. No engines, no orders, only the stillness of history. An empire that believed victory fit in its hands lies at the ocean's floor. A reminder that every war begins with illusion and ends with truth. They lost the war on December 7th, 1941. They just didn't know it yet.